Hello and welcome to the Global Dialogue. I'm Shireen Bhan and it is my pleasure to welcome back on the program the Global CEO of Mastercard, Michael Miebach, on his fourth visit to India in his capacity as CEO of Mastercard. Michael, always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. You know, fourth visit as CEO of Mastercard, but you're been visiting India for 20 plus years, 21 to be exact. And I know you are a believer in the India growth story. But let me start by asking you a big picture view on India. In all of your visits here over the last 20 years, what do you believe has been the most significant change?
So when I look at India, first of all, in the broader global ecosystem, I sense the sense of optimism about the India opportunity. So Mastercard isn't a standout from that perspective. We're deeply involved in the market, so we might have a deeper view than others. And from that perspective, what I've seen, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years, when previously at product in Mastercard and now at the CEO role, is this tremendous growth of the digital economy in India. So as India leverages technology to pull more people into a more inclusive digital economy, that's a real standout. That obviously is a tide that lifts everybody's boats, including Mastercard's, and we're happy to be on that journey. So I like that. Yesterday, we launched a very big facility in India. One of our 7 tech hubs has been launched in Pune. It's about 6,000 people there in a state-of-the-art facility. And the sentiment of our employees, first of all, there's excitement. They see the commitment to India with this investment, but there's also this excitement and the sense of opportunity, and we will find a solution, we'll find an opportunity. The level of ingenuity here is just infectious. So every time I come here, that is one thing to look forward to. There will be one new idea that I will find out about.
Did you pick up on a new idea yesterday?
Yeah, well, actually, we launched a big this new idea here only, when was it? The Global FinTech Festival. A few weeks back here, which was passkeys, which is basically biometric authentication for online commerce. Might not sound very exciting to most people listening to this. I find it personally very exciting because it makes something very complex very easy and very safe. You're online and you know it will just work, and you just can rely on that. I thought that is a very exciting idea, and it was first launched in India.
Well, I will come to the launches in India and what India is likely to do for Mastercard in terms of powering your global solutions. But coming back to Pune, as well as your aspiration for India, you talked about the 7 global tech hubs that you have. I believe this is going to be your largest facility for Mastercard globally. As you were allocating resources, what made you want to double down on India?
Right. So we have been in India for 40 years as a company. We've been bringing our payment solutions here. We set up our initial facility in Pune 10 years ago. So we have 10 years of experience with our ability to attract the best talent in the country, to attract talent that allows us to co-innovate out of India, catering to some of these special situation, where everything in India has to work at scale. So this makes it a very unique market. We're a business that's all about scale. We're in 200 plus countries, so learning about scale and having employees that, have that mindset sets India apart versus some of our other tech hubs where we do other things really well. We've learned over 10 years on how these tech hubs can work with each other, and it is a global network of innovating tech hubs. Follow the sun model, spanning the globe. And we said, okay, we're going to double down here because we have the talent, we have the scale aspect, and we have this aspect of, coming back to the culture point that I made earlier, the ingenuity is just really strong here. So puts us in a position to do that, and we feel very welcome because for 40 years now, there's a strong partnership with the government here, with the fintech sector. So for all of those reasons, I can go on, but we made a decision, and it's a commitment to India, but it's also a commitment to innovation and what we do around the globe.
Can you quantify the commitment in terms of the incremental investments that this will entail in this new facility, this expansion that you have announced, as well as what we could expect over the next 5 years from Mastercard?
So over the last 5 years, we invested $1 billion here. You know, this project's been, we opened it yesterday, but it's been a 2.5-year kind of construction project, absolutely state-of-the-art of employee experience. So we expect the staff number to grow in India, and it's been laid out for that. So many more opportunities that we will be investing in.
Well, speaking of opportunities, and you talked about collaborating with the thriving fintech ecosystem in India, take me through what excites you about what's happening there. Also, what worries you? Because, I mean, the pace of change is significant and the pace of innovation is pretty remarkable as well. So both from an opportunity point of view, but also a threat point of view, how do you look at that?
So we started off talking about us being bullish, me personally being bullish on the India opportunity. I had a first-hand experience to see that it's not just us. At the Leadership Summit of the U.S.-India Strategic Partnership Forum, I'm on the board there. I'm also on the board of the U.S.-India CEO Forum. So a lot of perspective. So you've got a
ringside view on what CEOs are saying.
A lot of perspective of what others are thinking. And when it comes to the startup community, India has a super strong startup ecosystem. It really fueled that. Fintech in particular is strong. So at the Leadership Summit, we had a few unicorns on stage, and they were talking about their growth story from a government support perspective, from a regulatory perspective, from a funding perspective. So here's a government that really is able to mobilize funding. So from that perspective, that's a good and important sector for us to engage in. What do? We are a fintech, a very large one, but we are a fintech. And we're engaging with other fintechs, helping them with our payment solutions. So giving you an example, take the world of credit-based solutions. So in India, there's a tremendous opportunity to further democratize the access to credit. There's a lot of businesses that innovate around that. In the end, money has to flow. Payment solutions are needed for that. Data is needed for that to assess credit and make that easier for banks. So we provide those solutions. There's a whole opportunity in the world of commercial payments. There's a lot of fintechs that focus on helping businesses digitize their processes, enable reconciliation of data, engage their customers in a better way. Those are all solutions that we provide for years on consumer engagement, on customer engagement, on data management. And all of this, everyone in the sector needs one thing. In an ever more digitizing world where the digital economy becomes like the economy, cybersecurity rises to the top. And that's a big part of how we engage with the ecosystem as well. That's a strong suit of Mastercard for many years.
I'll come to cybersecurity, and that's absolutely critical. But, on this engagement that you speak of with India's fintechs, Michael, what could that potentially mean? Of course, you are working with many of them, but could that mean funding some of them? Could that mean acquiring some of them? Is M&A part of that plan in terms of engagement?
Right. So, when we think about our own set of solutions that are needed in the market, we're always informed by what's the local need. So India will have different needs than Europe, than the US, and so forth. So it's always a decision for a company like ours. What do you build? What do you buy? And where there is local expertise that is really hard for us to build, we might not have the expertise. Acquisition is always an opportunity that we look at. We have just announced an acquisition that we're intending to close in the threat intelligence space, cybersecurity. What are the signals out there? So it's a company by the name of Recorded Future. That's a very deep expertise. So here we bought. Our approach here in India will be just to keep scanning the market and see what opportunities there are. We're wide open to that. Not anything I can disclose at this point, but certainly something in a sprawling ecosystem around fintech companies, we'll always keep our eyes open.
Okay, keeping your eyes open. I also want to understand from you, how you look at UPI. And I know that when we've previously spoken about it, you've always said that you don't consider it as a threat because you believe that it's actually opening up India's digital economy, so that it's widening the pie or deepening the market, so to speak. That might be the picture now, but as you look out into the future, how do you brace yourself? How do you create moats around yourself as UPI becomes more and more ubiquitous?
Right. I don't personally like the term moat that much, but it comes to the notion of who makes a decision. A consumer makes a decision, a business makes a decision, what kind of payment solutions they will use. And there will be different use cases. I want to get money from A to B in a very quick and fast and cheap and efficient way. That might be one set of solutions. On the other hand, I might want to have a data-rich solutions. I might want to have a solution that works across borders. I might want to have a solution that works for me as a business vis-a-vis me as a consumer. All of those are a whole different set of use cases. And we want to provide for each and every one of these instances that I just gave the best solutions, and people choose Mastercard. That's competition, that's choice, that's what we do. And, with the digital economy in India opening up, UPI has done a tremendous job. Aadhaar, everybody has an identity. This is all used. The passkey solution I mentioned earlier is based on the fact that there is a biometric identity to start with. We're now using that, and we're putting it across different use cases, including e-commerce. So what I see in the end is a much larger pie. And within that much larger pie, there will be UPI transactions, there will be card transactions, there will be transactions we can't even think of today. So we kind of keep innovating and keep competing. So I stick to my point that I said to you last time, that it is an opportunity because the pie keeps growing. The private sector over the years hasn't solved that. With the rise of UPI and Aadhaar and the India tech stack, the opportunity did get bigger, and we feel welcome. We're part of the India journey. And, it's a strong public-private partnership as well. We're engaged with the government on cybersecurity. So there's various aspects on how we contribute to this overall opportunity. It's not just payment solutions.
You spoke about the pie getting bigger here in India, but from a Mastercard perspective, what could it mean in terms of revenue from India? And I know that India is an important market as far as innovation is concerned and tech solutions are concerned, but the growth of the consumer story here in India has also been pretty widely acknowledged. How are you seeing this as a key market from a revenue perspective for Mastercard going forward?
So we've had a strong growth story in India. If you come back to the basic aspects of our business model, we're in the payment flow. We try to have a good solution to be in the payment flow, give consumers and businesses a reason to choose Mastercard. As volume grows, obviously that's a revenue opportunity for us because we invest in the solutions to make them safe and smart and so forth. And the strength of the Indian consumer shows in the data. We talked macro earlier on. So this is a strong growing economy on the path to be the third largest economy in the world. Well, we have to be part of that journey. We want to be part of that journey. So that's clear. But, there's a whole set of different ecosystems that are opening up. Just the world of commercial card payments is $50 billion in volume. But that's only a small part of the share of all payments that go back and forth between companies domestically and in out of India. It's a tremendous opportunity that is waiting to be digitized and becoming much more effective. So yet again, there's more growth potential. So you think here's a big growing consumer aspect. There's new verticals opening up. So we see a long-term opportunity here, which is why we've invested in the facility here and being as well positioned as we can to be part of that.
I know you don't give out country-wide wide numbers, but I still want to get a sense of, in terms of the number of transactions, for instance, that you're doing in India versus some of your other global markets today. I mean, what's the pecking order?
We don't, actually, I don't even know that number. I don't even know the number. So, well, it must be huge because everything in India is huge. That
it is, Michael.
No, but if you look at, if you just look at the overall growth rate, it's it is a very attractive growth rate, and you just look at it's a reflection of the economic growth in the country. And not every country is growing at the same. It is the fastest growing major economy in the world. So,
I want to step away from India for just a little bit and talk a little bit about what's happening globally.
Yes.
The U.S. market, and I remember in Davos, you said that the outlook was that there is going to be global expansion in 2024. That was the forecast as far as the Mastercard Economic Institute was concerned. Right. And we've seen many developments since then, including the Fed finally moving on cutting rates. What's your sense on what this could potentially mean now in terms of consumer spending?
Right. So, what I said in January at the World Economic Forum was that we see a resilient consumer, which is the base of a lot of our business. And that's held true throughout the year. So in our last earnings call, second quarter earnings call, yet again, we saw a resilient consumer globally in aggregate in the key markets. It's a discerning consumer. What does that mean? People make decisions, non-discretionary, discretionary spend, they balance, but in aggregate, we see pretty steady spending. This morning, I woke up to earnings from major U.S. banks.
Yes.
A lot of investors look at the U.S. economy and see that as a bit of a barometer, and we see strong consumer spending continuing as far as those banks are concerned. So overall, the macro picture on the consumer side is pretty benign, but it's also true that rates still remain elevated, prices still remain elevated. So we have to see what the various landing paths are in the major economies around the world. So we keep monitoring central bank reactions and moves as they're trying to get back into the target range for inflation. But overall, the consumer yet again has adjusted over those last 2 years or so and made those trade-offs. One thing that was exciting to see this summer is, so this was the summer of travel, the summer of experiences. We have different categories of spend that we can aggregate and where we can see that. Travel, very strong this summer. Europe in particular, very strong. Singapore, very strong. So you look across that, people want to go and do exciting things, do that trip, go and see a show and all of that, and it's showing in our categories of spend. 2 years ago, it was all about goods. Now it's all about services. The service economy is booming. That is a fundamentally global trend. And if we look specifically at India, the same. We see the same strength in consumer spending here.
You were talking about spending, and a data point that I picked up on this morning, and it's coming from the U.S. Retail Federation, talking about close to $1 trillion this holiday season coming up in winter. That's the kind of estimate that they're working with or forecasting, and that's higher year on year. What are some of the other headlines that you're picking up from the consumer trends, the consumption trends from across the world? You talked about how services is the big boost, and the experience economy is going through its own sort of surge. What are some of the other crucial trends that you're picking up that you're going to be focused on?
So the Mastercard Economic Institute projected holiday spending this year, very much in line with the retail report that you just said. So that's an exciting headline as we look ahead. And it fits with everything that I just said on the consumer sentiment. We believe the services economy and the spending on experiences will continue. Travel will be continuing. I think the other thing to look at, it's a picture in aggregate. So if you look at different countries around the world, it's not exactly the same situation because central bank reactions will be different across income bands. Pressures are felt in different ways at lower income bands. So those are just things that one needs to monitor and look for. But the headlines are fundamentally positive around consumer spending, and I think that's the one key point to keep in mind, because if the consumer is doing well, I don't think we have to worry that much about the economy overall either.
Well, that clearly is the silver lining in all of the data at this point in time. But Michael, since we're talking about global markets, let's talk about China. You've been servicing China from a cross-border point of view for very long, but you're now in the domestic market, the second company to get clearance from the Chinese regulators after American Express. What's the sense that you get on China at this point in time? Because there's been a lot of interest, especially in the last few weeks, on the back of the fiscal stimulus measures announced by the Chinese government on what that could potentially mean in terms of recovery. What's your take on China?
So we went live in China domestically with a joint venture in May this year. So what we're doing is offering a card solution to consumers and businesses in China. That is a one-card solution where you can spend domestically, but you can also spend as you travel. That is a unique proposition at scale now, so we feel good about that. I think if you zoom out a little bit, you see this is an economy that is now better connected to the international economy than it was before. That's fundamentally good. I think there's also something to learn about how we enter China, and that is a partnership approach. So when I look back to India here, so public-private partnership, we have strong partners here in India. You know, we partners with the Tata Group on a few things and with other local, large local companies here. So the partnership approach has served us well. And this is a way, I think, around us. We show up locally, and we're a global company and bring all of that together. So we're excited about the China journey, and we're excited about serving customers all around the world, and that's a big part of it.
Well, speaking of opportunities, and what everyone's focused on is how are you AI enabled? How do you fortify yourself in an AI era? Let's talk about that. You know, from your product days now to the CEO role, I mean, how do you view AI, both for Mastercard as well as the kind of disruptions it's likely to bring in for the ecosystem?
We could have not had this conversation without
AI, could we?
Absolutely. So here we are. Here we go. You know, it's interesting. Machine learning, it's been around for a long time. So we've been a leader in machine learning, I think, for the better part of the last decade. It sits at the core of how we keep 143 billion transactions safe for consumers and businesses out there. How do you even do that? Well, you do it with models, and then you predict. What's exciting about artificial intelligence, you know, as you step forward from machine learning, is what it can do in terms of transforming the lives of consumers and businesses. Think about small business. So as a small business, you have a set of data in your business, and you generally, it's very difficult to make sense of that because it's not structured. There's not an easy way to help you run your business. And you don't really have a CFO, a lot of staff, because you're busy running your business. So we're excited about solutions that take such data, structure it, and provide input to a small business owner or a medium-sized business owner and say, here's how you can optimize your working capital. Here's a better way to reach your customers because we can use this data to personalize your offers and so forth. So we believe in making commerce smarter, leveraging AI, and we have been very busy keeping commerce safe, leveraging machine learning. So it all will converge into one. Who cares about the difference? In the end, it's a better digital economy, and there's a tremendous opportunity for us. So the compute power that we can put into more people's hands to use their own data more effectively, I think it's transformative. Whatever we say today will be probably an underestimation of what will actually happen. So I'm bullish on it, but we also have to, consider that this cannot be one of those technologies where we start to have an unleveled playing field and we don't take everybody along. So all the work that we've done, that has been done in India to create an inclusive digital economy, we have to do the same for AI. And not say, here's the people who have data and who have a large language model access, who have the compute power, and others have not. So that's a watch out for. And we believe responsible AI is the way to go. And I hear the same sentiments here in India.
Yes, and I think everyone's figuring out how to put the guardrails in place. Right. Who puts the guardrails in place? Right. Do you have guardrails in different jurisdictions? And what that will mean eventually in terms of the ease of doing business and the ease of compliance as well. Does that worry you?
So I think we need to strike the right balance when it comes to setting the guardrails on one hand, on the other hand, not stifle innovation. And the private sector, technology companies like Mastercard have a responsibility here. I think starts off with a very principled approach. We've long used to this in Mastercard through our data principles. So we would tell you as a consumer, it's your data, you benefit from it, you control it. and we keep it safe. Pretty simple. But that's GDPR. That is actually the GDPR legislation in 4 simple sentences. The same logic we apply to AI with a set of tech principles where we say it has to be inclusive, it has to be unbiased. You got to be transparent in telling people they're using AI, etc.
Yeah.
That's one building block. I think when it comes to regulation, it's really important that we don't regulate the technology, we don't regulate the innovation process as such, but we get to the use cases and say, when it is in the hand of a consumer, here's, why don't we take those principles and put them into a regulation? Europe has moved forward with the AI Act. So we'll see where everybody else is going, as it's important that we don't have fragmentation of regulation, because then it's going to be very hard, because in the end data exchange will matter. So there's got to be a bit of interoperability of regulation that needs to be kept in mind. Yeah,
interoperability, harmonization. I think India's point of view is that given where we find ourselves, not just in the tech space, but population as well, that we ought to have a voice in global regulation. We need to have a seat at the table. We should in fact be part of the rule making. How would you respond to that?
It's a very true point, and it comes back to the uneven or even playing field. I think India has taken a position at the global stage. I was involved here at the B20, actually, as last time we spoke. So that was a good example where exactly those points were on the table. And if you look at some of the recommendations that came out of the B20 in India, was exactly around those spaces. So I was involved in some of the work around small business, where we said, okay, we've got to create a level playing field, and this is what everybody else should be doing. It's very encouraging to see that the suggestions that came out on exactly the points we discussed now made its way to the B20 in Brazil, which is actually getting together next week. So India has a voice, the Global South has a voice, and I think that's important in the world of setting global standards and interoperability.
Outside of AI, I think the other big focus area, it's been sort of on again, off again, cryptos. And we're seeing a lot of interest back in the US with both the presidential candidates talking about cryptos. Mastercard is in that space as well. How do you see this evolving now?
So I think about the underlying technology. We think about that as a company. We're in the business of facilitating value exchange, commerce between parties that don't know each other. So it's a question of trust. How do you record trust that this transaction took place? Goods have been exchanged. That's what distributed ledger technology can do. So we like it from that perspective. It's good and useful technology, and it was in search for use cases for some time. Crypto, on the other hand, is, it's an asset category. People wanted to invest in it, and, when it goes up and down and all of that. We facilitate that through Mastercard. If you want to buy cryptocurrency, then you can do it in a safe way through Mastercard. We partner with crypto exchanges, but that's not what we should be talking about. What we should be talking about is that first point. And here, when you start to look at what are some interesting use cases where this technology can help, so we ended up in the world of wholesale banking, where you have wholesale banks wanting to exchange different assets. So you tokenize those assets, use the programmability of this technology. We say, okay, so for this trade payment, if the following 5 conditions are fulfilled, then the payment will flow, and it's pretty visible, and it's an optimized process. We launched something called a multi-token network. I will not go into the great details of that, but it basically facilitates, using this technology, a more efficient exchange of global payments, cross-border, and other assets. So there's a lot of central banks now that are engaged in this field, and we're a trusted private sector party at the tables. So we'll yet to see where it goes, but I have a deep belief in the technology.
We've spoken about this since the time that you took over as CEO, of making this transition to becoming a global digital payments provider. And Michael, in terms of revenue today, 40% of global revenue for Mastercard coming in via digital payments. I mean, how do you look at the evolution where you are today and where you believe that you could potentially be over the next 5 years?
So, when I look at our business model, when I look at the sources of revenue for the company, About 37% is related to services that we provide to make all types of payments, cards, non-cards, our payments, other people's payments, safer and smarter. And the vast majority of our revenue is related to payments, and that is obviously all digital payments. We don't deal in cash. In fact, that's a tremendous growth opportunity. If you look around the world and you look at where we are today in terms of digitizing the world, there are markets that are highly digitized. You look at the Nordics, there's almost no cash left. You look at very large economies like Japan, there's a lot of cash left and everything in between. Now, India has made tremendous progress with, we talked about it earlier, pulling more people into the system. So there's a lot less cash, there's a lot more digital. That's fundamentally a long-term secular growth opportunity as more cash is displaced. You won't believe it, there's even checks that are still around.
I write them.
You still write them. So I think that there's a better way to do this, and we have some options for that. So this is a long-term growth opportunity for the company. We're excited about it. Our investors are excited about it. We just need to make sure that our solution is competitive in all markets. We understand the local context, and we have a solution that works there and is differentiated and just makes it not a payment, but a payment that is better and smarter. And that's what we do with our loyalty programs, with personalization solutions, with cybersecurity solutions, and the likes that I come back to. This is 37% of our revenue is not the payment itself. It's actually additional services.
So where does that leave the growth algorithm that you've laid out for the company? What does it mean now in terms of future launches? What does it mean in terms of further expansion? And, any new ideas that you're working towards taking forward? Any announcements that we should expect globally or here in India?
So our timing is in a way good, but it's also not that good because on the 13th of November, we have our Investor Day coming up, and I don't want to preview the Investor Day with you today. But, the opportunity that I just talked about, long-term, secular opportunity around the digitization of the world, there's a whole host of things you can do to make those payments smarter, safer. The passkey launch here with biometrics in India is only one aspect. It's interesting, that one, I'll just dwell on that for a moment because it's a global opportunity. So underneath that is a tokenization engine that basically takes your biometric details and puts it into a one-time token that's passed through the system. And if it's ever hacked, nobody else can do anything. It's only for one-time use. A lot of detail, but this is the vision of the RBI. This is what the RBI put out and said this has to be a safe payment ecosystem. India is the first pretty much completely tokenized market in the world. We have 240 million tokens here in India. Now, we see the whole world being tokenized, following India's example. It's a tremendous growth opportunity for us. I think to date we have like 4 billion tokens that have already passed through the system. And if this expands for the whole world, that's an opportunity for Mastercard and also a responsibility for Mastercard to make the whole ecosystem safer. So that's on the consumer side. We're excited about commercial. I give you a little preview of the numbers here in this market, the commercial payment ecosystem. You see in a lot of companies, you have a new generation of CEOs, younger people that are used to a digital personal life, and they look at their processes in their company and say, well, there's got to be digitizing that. There's a whole host of companies that have departments that do nothing else but reconciling, has this invoice been paid, yes or no? This can all be optimized and be much more efficient so those resources are focused on producing better product instead of reconciling invoices. Tremendous opportunity for us. And then a mix between risk and opportunity. Risk for the global digital economy is cybersecurity. So with the world getting more digital and everything I just said, there's more cyber threats coming along. We're a cybersecurity heavyweight. We're leaning in with the state-of-the-art solutions. And that is an opportunity for us. While we don't want an unsafe world, but we want to lean in and keep it safe, and that is the business that we're in.
So are we likely to see you make significantly higher investments on bolstering the ammunition that you have on the cybersecurity side, delivering on the promise of being the cybersecurity heavyweight, as you called yourself?
Right. So we've invested in the range of billions into cybersecurity in the company. I think it's $5 billion over the last 7 years that invested. So we will continue as our business grows, as the digital economy grows. You see us continue to make heavy investments there. We got to keep our own house in order to start with. As you can appreciate, we have a lot of data, and that is responsibility number 1, 2, and 3. At the same time, we invest on behalf of our customers to stay ahead of the curve as the fraudsters are doing their work, and we always want to be half a step ahead. So continuous heavy investment. I wouldn't use the word heavy because we have continuously invested to stay where we are.
Let me end, Michael, by asking you about something that I know that requires a lot of focus and attention, since we're talking about leveling the playing field, gender. And I know that Mastercard is focused on that, especially to ensure that women get access to STEM education. Take me through why that's a priority for you and what more we can expect you to do there.
So, with an ever-digitizing world, you find when you look at the digitally not included, there's a high proportion of women. So that's historically true. When we stepped forward back in 2020, we put out a goal and said, as a private sector, single private sector company, said we're going to pull 1 billion people into the formal financial system. And we wanted to create an emphasis on women-led businesses in particular, because businesses drive further financial inclusion around them. So if you have a women shop owner, they will be seen as a role model. So we put out a goal for 25 million women-led businesses that we will enable. Here in India, we do good work around that, very good work around it with Strive India. It's a program that we do to enable small businesses. During my visits, I keep meeting female entrepreneurs here who take their business digital. It was not digital. It was a real problem in COVID. We help them, give them the tools. So to date, I think we have 285,000 small businesses that we pulled into the digital economy by enabling them. Back to the point about partnerships. Here in India, we partner with the Airtel Payments Bank. Right. Yet again, on enabling women, 100,000 women entrepreneurs that we want to enable. But it starts with education and capacity building. How do you seed that seed in a girl's mind that STEM is made for girls just as much as for anybody else? Yeah. So in partnership with the American India Foundation, actually Mastercard was honored by the American India Foundation in summer this year for our work around STEM education. We have Girls for Tech. Girls for Tech celebrated 10 years this year. It's an education program it starts at high school, middle school, in fact, where we pull in girls. It started in Westchester, actually in Connecticut, 10 years ago. But today in India, there's 225,000 girls that we've put through the program and saying STEM is for you. And there were tremendous stories of girls that were shown in Manhattan at the big gala where so much money came in to support this effort even further on that very successful night for American India Foundation. I was ramping up on stage and said, we need more for this cause. Stories of girls that were saying, this was not my thing, but now I'm studying at this university and I'm going to set up my own business. I think it's really important because in this digital world, we need female voices. So that's where it's going. Well,
I couldn't agree more with you. Yes, we do need female voices. We need all kinds of voices as we move forward. But Michael, it's always a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us here on the Global Dialogue on CNBC-TV18. We look forward to your future visits in India, and we look forward to hearing more from Mastercard about what you're doing here in India, what you're doing in India for the world as well. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of the Global Dialogue. From all of us here on the team for now, goodbye, and many thanks for watching.